One of history's most consequential decisions was a real estate choice. Emperor Constantine looked at Rome, the city that gave the empire its name, and chose to build somewhere else, a narrow strait where two continents nearly touch. His new Rome would outlast the original by 1,000 years. In 324 CE, Constantine won the Battle of Chrysopolis, defeating his last rival and unifying the Roman Empire under his sole command. The battle took place near an ancient Greek town called Byzantium, positioned at the Bosphorus, the narrow strait connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. Standing at its crossroads, Constantine saw something remarkable. This wasn't just a strategic position, it was the strategic position, the only land bridge between Europe and Asia. Control this point, and you control movement between continents. Constantinople's location offered a four-directional advantage no other city could match. East-west command the only crossing between continents. North-south control passage between the Black Sea and Mediterranean. The Black Sea wasn't a remote backwater. It connected to Silk Road trade networks flowing from Central Asia. Controlling its access meant controlling wealth from the east. Most critically for an emperor, Constantinople sat equidistant to the empire's two most dangerous frontiers, barbarian tribes pressing the Danube to the north, the Persian Empire threatening from the east. Compare this to Rome's position. The old capital sat isolated in the western Mediterranean, far from where threats and wealth were concentrating. An emperor in Rome needed weeks to reach either frontier. An emperor in Constantinople could respond to either crisis within days. This wasn't about Rome failing. In 330 CE, Rome remained symbolically powerful. Constantine's move was proactive, positioning himself at the empire's true center of gravity. The eastern provinces were becoming richer, more urban, more commercial. Alexandria, Antioch, Ephesus. These cities generated the tax revenue that funded legions and built infrastructure. Rome had become a symbolic capital, not a functional one. Emperors rarely lived there anymore. The Senate held ceremonial power at best. Constantinople placed the emperor at the heart of the tax base, where administrative decisions could translate directly into action. Constantine wasn't just building a fortress, he was building a statement. He constructed everything Rome had: forums for public gathering, palaces for imperial ceremony, aqueducts for water supply, victory columns celebrating military triumph. Visitors would recognize every element of Roman civic life, but one substitution changed everything. Where Rome had temples to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, Constantinople had churches, the Church of the Holy Apostles, the Church of Holy Peace. This was ideological architecture, a declaration that Roman power now flowed through Christian channels. Constantine understood something other ambitious rulers would later grasp. Where you build and how you build declares who you are. Peter the Great built St. Petersburg in 1703 as Russia's window to Europe, a deliberate turn toward Western civilization constructed on swampland to prove his will. Louis XIV built Versailles to centralize French power, forcing nobles to orbit around him rather than their provincial estates. Constantinople served the same function, a physical declaration of Christian imperial identity. The architecture itself was a political argument made permanent in stone. Here's what Constantine never intended. He ruled the entire empire, east and west, unified under one man. He never divided it. Earlier, Emperor Diocletian had tried splitting administration between four co-emperors. The tetrarchy, and that's what historians call it, collapsed because emperors wouldn't cooperate. But Diocletian's geographic logic survived by creating a fully functional eastern capital with its own forums, palaces, and administrative machinery. Constantine made future division not just possible, but natural. Two centers meant two potential empires. The consequences unfolded over centuries. After Constantine's death, emperors repeatedly split the empire between sons or co-rulers. East and West developed different administrative traditions, different military challenges, different relationships with the church. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell. Germanic kingdoms carved up Italy, Gaul, and Spain. Rome itself was sacked multiple times, but Constantinople, the Eastern Empire, which historians call the Byzantine Empire, continued, not for decades, not for centuries, for another 1,000 years, until 1453. Constantine solved his immediate problems brilliantly. He positioned his capital at the crossroads of continents. He placed himself at the empire's economic heart. He declared a new Christian imperial identity through architecture itself. But in solving those problems, he created something he never intended, the infrastructure for permanent division. The Western Empire, cut off from Eastern wealth and Eastern armies, eventually collapsed under pressures it couldn't sustain. The Eastern Empire, centered on Constantinople's unmatched position, endured. One man's real estate decision in 330 CE determined which half of Roman civilization would survive the medieval centuries. The libraries, the laws, the administrative traditions that Constantinople preserved would eventually flow back westward during the Renaissance, shaping the modern world. Constantine wanted a better capital. He got that. He also got a 1,000-year empire he never imagined.